the Harvard Lampoon has produced so many funny people. The magazine is almost 150 years old now. Never funny. It's never been fun. It wasn't funny when I ran it. It wasn't funny when Robert Benchley ran it. It just, for some reason, it never comes out good. But the people are hilarious. And it's a great comedy training camp to just be there hanging around all day and all night with really funny people. Harry Shearer, who plays Mr. Burns, is now older than Mr. Burns. More than most people on The Simpsons, I grew up in Springfield. I mean, Sam, to go back to Sam Simon, who's so instrumental in creating, this lower middle class town. He grew up in Beverly Hills. He was a millionaire's kid.
Was he really?
Yeah, and even Matt Groening, he's from Portland, Oregon. His father was a documentary filmmaker and a violinist and a surfer. That's the real Homer Groening. His father was named Homer, but nothing like Homer Simpson.
You're never going to be perfectly happy all the time. The best you can hope for is to be reasonably happy. Reasonably happy. Most of the time. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My guest today is Mike Reiss. He is a former writer, producer, and showrunner of a little show called The Simpsons. His name appears in the credits of 692 episodes over the last 36 years of the show's existence. He's also a screenwriter who worked on Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs, The Simpsons Movie, and My Life in Ruins. Oh. He is the winner of 4 Primetime Emmys, not those BS daytime Emmys, the real Emmys, a Peabody, and an Edgar Allan Poe Award.
Oh, you got that one.
I got that one. Yes. I do my preparation, sir.
Yes.
Mike, welcome to Reasonably Happy.
Well, it's so nice to be here. I'm reasonably happy to be here.
Are you reasonably
happy? Which I realize probably your past 500 guests all made that joke.
No, they have not. Anthony Scaramucci said, why just reasonably happy? And I said, because I'm a realist, because every day isn't perfect. So I've been enjoying your memoir, Springfield Confidential.
Oh, thank you.
And doing lots of reading about you. You seem to be pretty happy for a comedy writer.
Yes, I am very happy. When I first saw the name of this, I thought this was going to be kind of a psychotherapy, feel-good
We
podcast.
can go there if you want.
We can go there, and I said, I am more than reasonably happy.
Yeah.
And it just got me thinking back on that, where I was a baby for 3 years. I just sat in my playpen and grinned, and I didn't talk. And I was very happy to the point where my mom took me to the doctor and said, is there anything wrong with this kid? And he said, well, we don't see any brain damage, but he's not going to be as sharp as the other kids.
Hilarious.
But I remember I literally have this memory being in the playpen thinking, well, I got it all here. I'm sitting, I got my toys right where I can need them, and people pick me up. I thought it doesn't get any better than this.
What do you think it is about your personality or your brain chemistry that allows you to not stress over stuff that other people might stress about?
Yes, I think it is pure brain chemistry. I don't think my upbringing or my attitudes, or I have no philosophy, but we have a couple of crabby guys at The Simpsons. Sam,
a couple?
Just a couple. Comedy writers are not comedians. There's a big difference. And somebody told me 90%, this is a psychologist, said 90% of stand-up comedians are clinically depressed.
I believe that.
Yeah, you probably go higher. But comedy writers, if they're working, they're genuinely...
If they're working.
They're a happy bunch. The Simpsons people are very happy guys, nice to each other. They have very stable marriages. So it's not that uncommon. And in fact, you get surprised when you meet a comedian or a comedy writer who's kind of crabby or misanthropic. And you go, well, why do you write comedy?
You should perform comedy. That's where you belong.
But one night I took NyQuil and I woke up crabby, and I know it was the drug, and I woke up and I said, oh, I'm Sam Simon today. I can still do my job and that kind of thing, but I am crabby and everyone's getting on my last nerve. So that's where I decided it's all in the chemicals.
Well, we have to, since you've mentioned Sam twice, we have to talk about who he is, because he's one of these people that had a giant impact on the television that people in Gen X and beyond grew up with, but they probably don't know his name. Who was Sam?
Sam is he's one of the creators of The Simpsons. Matt Groening gets the official credit. He created those characters, drew them, named them, gave them personalities, and in a series of 1-minute cartoons. And
for the Tracy Ullman
show. For the Tracy Ullman show. And it's funny because they buried those cartoons. You can't find them anywhere. I have a VHS tape of them, and they're violent, and the voices are off, and the animation looks terrible, but everything's in there. They've got Krusty the Clown and Itchy and Scratchy and Grandpa and the whole family there. So they're in the shorts, but when they decided to turn it into a half-hour show, they brought in James L. Brooks oversaw it. So
one of the most prolific television and film producers of our lifetime.
He's the I think he may be unique in that he conquered
Taxi,
TV.
Mary Tyler Moore, Terms of Endearment, broadcast news, like everything.
He's as huge in TV as in movies, and I don't think there's anyone else like that. And just brilliant guy. But for the day-to-day work, it was Sam Simon, and Sam was just a wunderkind. He was a child prodigy of comedy, where he got out of college, and I think by the time he was 23, he's running Taxi.
At 23 years old.
23 years old, running
Taxi the show. He's not driving a taxi.
Show. Yes. Yes, he was running the show. And, I worked very closely with him for years. And, he was Mozart of sitcoms. He just was it just poured out of him so perfectly. And but very cantankerous, he just... If somebody wasn't giving their best effort, he would be withering, and that was it. So he had not a great reputation, but I got along fine with him.
I got to meet Sam one night. Norm Macdonald brought him to a show that I was hosting in Irvine, or maybe it was in Ontario, California, probably 20 years ago. And Norm, Sam went to the bathroom. He's like, you know what this guy is? Like, he's one of the biggest guys in entertainment. I was like, oh, holy crap, that's pretty cool.
He's an amazing man. And then once he got out of TV, he sort of plucked a boxer out. He saw a boxer he liked and said, I'm going to manage this boxer. And he took him to he became world champion for a few months.
Wow.
And then he went into poker and became poker world champion. And his ex-wife, Jennifer Tilly, also became poker world champion, and then he died, and then he came back as a ship for Greenpeace. He left all this money to Greenpeace, and now they have the SS Sam Simon.
Oh my gosh.
And it's a joke too, SS Sam Simon.
Right, yeah.
That's pretty good, even from the grave.
So were you funny in grade school?
I was a very quiet kid. I always just wanted to be a writer, and I would write jokes for the class clown. I go, oh, Kyle, say this or do this.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And I would write funny essays, and when you had to write, I'm a writer, when you had to write a story, but not the class clown or anything like that. Very, very shy. And when I got my first report card in first grade, the teacher wrote, Michael keeps us laughing all the time. And my mom looked at me. She goes, are you funny? I go, I don't know.
Was laughter encouraged in your home?
Yes, it was we were a big comedy family. There's 5 kids and my parents. And
traditional Jewish family. And was it Massachusetts? Where
it is Connecticut. Okay. Outside of, we were pretty much the Jewish community of Bristol, Connecticut, which is a factory town in the middle of a suburb of Hartford.
Eventually home of ESPN.
Yes. It was. We used to have 3 factories there. It was Springfield. Yeah. I think more than most people on The Simpsons, I grew up in Springfield. I mean, to go back to Sam Simon, who's so instrumental in creating, this lower middle class town. He grew up in Beverly Hills. He was a millionaire's kid.
Was he really?
Yeah, and even Matt Groening, he's from Portland, Oregon. His father was a documentary filmmaker and a violinist, and a surfer. That's the real Homer Groening. His father was named Homer, but nothing like Homer Simpson.
What entertainers were on the television when you were growing up?
Well, it dates me that just we, as a family, would watch the Ed Sullivan Show every week, and it would just, the room would go quiet when the comedian came on. It was like, all right, everybody watch and learn. And so, who do I remember? It was Myron Cohen and Jackie Mason and Mort Sahl. We just loved the comedians. And in the family bathroom, we kept Joey Adams' joke dictionary. It was a 600-page dictionary of jokes, and they were good jokes. And that was, when, especially Jewish people spend hours a day in the bathroom.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yes, we do. And this is our version of sports. And so I mean, the entire family, including like my sister when she was 5, we knew this book inside out. And that's it. In my house, you only had to start a joke, and everyone goes, yeah, elephant ear sandwich. Yeah, we know.
Number 17.
Right.
That's so funny. How did you choose Harvard for your college?
I chose Harvard only because they had the Harvard Lampoon. They had a humor magazine there, and I knew about it. There was a big coffee.
So if there had been like a SUNY Binghamton Lampoon, you would have been in competition with Harvard.
Yes, I would. Yeah, there were other humor magazines, but when I was 13, I think my mom gave me a big coffee table book for my birthday, and it was a centennial celebration of the Harvard Lampoon. And a lot of people on the Lampoon had the exact same story. They got that as a gift. And
whose writing was in that? Because this would have been what, the 70s?
Yeah, the book came out. Yes, it's funny. The centennial of the Lampoon was 1976, but the book came out in 73 as sort of a joke, and it was just a massive book. None of it funny. And this is the amazing thing that people sort of know now. The Harvard Lampoon has produced so many funny people. The magazine is almost 150 years old now. Never funny. It's never been fun. It wasn't funny when I ran it. It wasn't funny when Robert Benchley ran it. It just, for some reason, it never comes out good. But the people are hilarious, and it's a great comedy training camp to just be there hanging around all day and all night with really funny people. But when I went there, I went for the Lampoon, and it was at the time not like a career path into Hollywood. I had no idea I would wind up a comedy writer. I just thought I would be a funny lawyer or something, but I liked humor. And my first day at Harvard, I went to the door of the Lampoon and said, I would like to join. And they said, well, it doesn't work that way.
How did it work?
It's a very stiff writing competition. You have to crank out, it may have changed, but you had to write 6 articles in 8 weeks. You had no guidance. And at the end, they would just vote you in or out. And only about 7 out of 100 people every semester would get elected. And nobody, including me, gets on the first time they try out. So first semester, they say comped. I competed, didn't get on. Second semester, I competed again, and I got on. And if I hadn't gotten on, I was going to leave Harvard because I liked nothing else about the place.
What didn't you like about Harvard?
Harvard, I know a little about colleges because I had about 10 years as a college lecturer, and I went to 300 campuses.
To talk about your TV
Talk
work.
about The Simpsons,
Yeah.
Especially when The Simpsons was really red hot. I could, 30,
and you did this for fun, for money, for intellectual stimulation?
Fun money.
Fun money.
It was good. It was
Fun money's the best. Sometimes they actually pay me to do stand-up, occasionally.
Yeah,
and that's nothing better.
I got paid. It wasn't an occupation, but it was a very nice second occupation, and it got us all over the country, and it got us to places we wouldn't go, like South Dakota and things like that. But I would give my talk, and then we'd see the town and see the campus, and I really enjoyed that. But what I saw from going to 300 colleges is they're all better than Harvard. They're all, the professors knew the students. The fact that I was speaking at this college already made it better than Harvard, and that Harvard never did that. In 4 years, they never said, let's do something fun for the students. Let's bring in some entertainment, or who might they like to see? They just didn't do that. They completely disengaged faculty and administration. Now they're anti-Semitic, too, so they've got that going.
Well, they're not
for
alone
them.
in that capacity.
Well, yeah. It's just a mess. I said that is a terrible thing to say, but if a meteor hit Harvard today, tomorrow I'd take the train up to Boston and pee in the crater. I just hate the place. Now, I met my wife there. I love my wife. She's brilliant. The joke I make is I only took 2 things away from Harvard that I treasure to this day: my wife and 300 library books.
Where are those books?
Those are, they're like my wife. They're stacked in the bedroom.
So what did you think you were, so when you went to Harvard?
You went right past that. That's a good joke.
So I'm sorry. Say that again, please.
Yeah.
Yes, your wife and 300 books.
They're both stacked in the bedroom.
Oh, they're stacked.
They're stacked, folks. Here we go. Hottest joke in 1958.
I don't believe she was there at the same time you were, but I will take your word for it. So you were thinking when you went to Harvard, like writing is a thing that you could do for a living, or
no, I just didn't know. I'd never met anyone who did it for a living.
Coming from Bristol. Pre-ESPN Bristol.
Yes, we had Gary Berghoff, the guy who played Radar on MASH.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a very old city. We had Radar, and he never came back. Once he left town, he never looked back.
Gary, we'd like to give you the keys to the city. No thanks.
No thanks. I'll knock. So
he never came back.
He never came back, and then there was me. And then they had Aaron Hernandez.
Oh goodness.
Okay, so you know who that is. So that's the big three. That's the big trinity of Bristol alums.
So when you got out, how did you figure out that there were people who would actually pay you to do the thing you love?
It's the luckiest break, and it's sort of what the whole story of my career, which was I'm just writing articles, and I was writing with Al Jean, who became my writing partner for many, many years. And I'm writing these articles, and then I got a call from National Lampoon magazine back when that was a big thing. People don't even know. They sort of have an idea of it as a brand, but at the time, that was the outlet for grown-up humor. It was a humor magazine, and it was huge. And
they had a radio hour as well.
And the radio hour.
That's where like Chevy Chase came from.
Chevy Chase. I mean, the cast of the radio hour was Chevy Chase, John Belushi, Bill Murray, and Gilda Radner. They had all those guys and then lost them all to Saturday Night Live. But that was the place to go. And I'm a junior in college, and they called me and Al and said, we're reading, we like your writing in the Harvard Lampoon. And I said, you read the Harvard Lampoon? And they said, we've been reading it for years. We just never saw anything funny before.
Hilarious.
So
what did you write that they thought was funny?
Al and I together wrote an article called Spooky Magic. It was just a parody of magic books you got as a kid. And it was just funny. It was full of jokes. And I think they liked a parody of Encyclopedia Brown that Al had written.
Nice.
Yeah, he did a nice job. But so they hired us as freelancers while we were still in college. And then we graduated, and they just put us on staff. We walked right into a job.
And that was in New York. Was that in New York?
It was in New York at 59th and Madison. And I loved it. And, when I was a kid reading National Lampoon, which was semi-pornographic, and I would steal my older brother's copies, I thought, oh, gee, if all my dreams come true, I could work for this someday. And then I had the job at 21, and it's a weird feeling. Oh, all right, well, I've achieved my life goal at 21. What now? But I loved the job. It's still one of the nicest jobs I had.
So you're living in New York City. Was Al your roommate?
Al was my roommate.
And you guys are just 21.
21.
What time do you go to the office, and how long? Do you write with a pipe and your typewriter there? Like
We
some turtleneck sweater. I'm some 70s beard that you probably grew experimentally.
I did have a big afro.
Did you?
I had a big afro at the time, and Al and I were so lucky. We got an apartment in Soho. I mean, Soho now is just so
It wasn't
private.
the same, right?
Oh, no. And this is 1981, which I guess they said was the most dangerous year in New York history. But we didn't know. We were young, and we were, and we had a very nice apartment. We shared this apartment, and then we would subway uptown and share an office. And it was, perfectly amicable, but it was weird in that I sometimes forgot which one I was. People would say, I'd get a call, is Al there? Yeah, this is Al. Oh, wait, no, I'm Mike. I'm sorry.
Funny. So how do you get it to Hollywood?
So we were working at National Lampoon, and this is my whole career, and I always tell this wrong because it's sort of embarrassing. There's these two writers named Max Pross and Tom Gamble, and they were a couple of years ahead of us at Harvard Lampoon, and everybody loved them. And if you look them up on IMDb, they just have the most stellar career. Saturday Night Live, when it was great. Letterman, when it was great. Seinfeld, I think the entire run of the show. Gary Shandling show. People loved these guys. They were fantastic writers and fun to be around. And if you couldn't get them, you got us. And that was it. So they had an offer to work in Hollywood on the movie Airplane 2.
Oh, nice.
Not Airplane,
Right.
Airplane 2. And they turned it down and recommended Al and me. And, we had to audition for the job, but we got the job. And Hollywood called. We had done some writing on the sly because they didn't want you doing side projects at National Lampoon. And they call up one Sunday night and say, can you be in Hollywood tomorrow? And we go, okay. And so the next morning, we ran out on our lease, and we walked into National Lampoon the next morning and quit our jobs. And they had it's so sad, they had just fired another guy. And clearly, if we had quit first, they wouldn't have fired the other guy. But also, they literally lost 60% of their staff in one morning.
Wow.
So that was it. We got on a plane, went to Hollywood, and Tuesday morning we're on the set of the movies in a wooden box, in like the hot box on the stage, writing jokes for the movie. Whenever they'd get in trouble or needed more jokes, Al and I would bang them out.
So it's already in production. The script is locked at that point.
The script is locked, but they always go, we need something better here. And in fact, it's such a great introduction to Hollywood. My first day in Hollywood, I'm in the hot box. You can't imagine. It's just a cabin built on the set,
Yeah.
No windows. They couldn't turn on the AC because it made too much noise. And if everyone remembers an Airplane, Peter Graves, the pilot, is kind of hitting on the little boy. So
You ever seen a grown man naked?
exactly. So the sequel, this is the demand of the studio. The sequel said, we want to do everything that was in the first movie, but a little different. So in the sequel, a little boy walks in the cockpit with a dog, and Peter Graves is hitting on the dog. And they go, all right, we need more lines for Peter Graves hitting on the dog. That was my first assignment in Hollywood, under pressure.
So what'd you write?
I don't remember. I literally don't remember any of them. But it was, I felt the shame right away.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
You wrote jokes for Johnny Carson.
Yes, I did.
Now, so what's so interesting to me is that he's sort of a mainstream guy, very traditional pan-America type humorist, as opposed to writing jokes about the dog in the cockpit
Yes.
or the kind of subversive indie humor that appeared on The Simpsons. What was writing for Johnny like?
Well, it was hard work. They sort of had an unofficial quota of 60 jokes a day.
Jeez.
And that just meant
Crank them out.
crank them out. Yeah, there was no quality control. They just wanted to see a big number. And I think about it all the time. Why didn't they? I wish they'd ask for 15 good jokes or 10 good jokes where we could polish them, but it was just blah, and we just spit it all out. And it was kind of a dark time at the Tonight Show. Johnny was getting divorced. This is 84 to 86. He's going through a divorce. He's not happy, but also Letterman has just reached his peak. He's come on. He's the new thing, everyone loves, and Carson is suddenly seeming very passé. And it was not a good time, and the staff had been in place for a long time. You know, he kept his writers there for like 20 years. So everyone knew what not to do. Johnny doesn't like this. Johnny doesn't get this kind of joke. Oh, this offends him. He won't like this. So you walked in completely boxed in. And so we would crank out jokes to these very narrow parameters, and they weren't great, and he was unhappy. And one day he finally he fired everybody.
Wow.
He fired all those old timers. He put the newest writers. He fired us. He put the newest writers in charge of the show, and it changed overnight. It changed overnight. And it was those last 2-3 years of the Tonight Show where he went out with real class and dignity, and he was funny again, and he was happy again. He, in my year and a half writing for him, I think I spent 90 minutes in his presence.
Wow.
He did not want to see his writers. He didn't want to know his writers. But in that last few years of the show, he'd have the writers up to his house every Monday morning, and they'd work out what they would do for the week, and he was good company.
It's interesting you say that because I just finished the Lorne book, the biography that just came out. And one of the points the author makes is that Lorne, having written for, was it Smothers Brothers or it was Laugh-In? I think he was at Laugh-In. And that they always, the writers were in one building and the producers and the actors, performers were in another one, and never the twain shall meet. Yeah. And Lorne made SNL from the beginning like a writer-forward project, and he wanted those people, to really play a big role in the production of the show. And indeed, if you listen, you read about all the people who have been on SNL. It's like you've got to suck up to the writers if you want to get yourself some screen time.
Very interesting. At Tonight Show, it was even more compartmentalized in that he had a monologue team and a sketch team, and sketches weren't just Karnak and Aunt Blabby and all these things, but also what his desk bit every night. Oh, there's a heat wave in L.A. Well, here's 10 ways you can beat the heat, and you do 10 jokes. So that was the sketch team, and that's what I was on. I would much rather been on the monologue team.
Because it's more straightforward, and you can look at the newspaper and say this is...
Yeah, I think I can do that. And these, when it was Karnak or something fun, that was great. But he had a recurring bit called The Edge of Wetness, and it was just never funny. It was never funny. I think the head writer created it, so he was very partial to doing it. Carson didn't like it. I hated writing it. And, I not only had to write, I had to write 60 Edge of Wetness jokes.
Oh, gosh.
And, so I forgot where I was going. My whole point is... Compartmentalized. Yep. He had the sketch writers in one building, and the monologue writers were in a completely different building, far away.
On the lot in Burbank.
Yeah, and I worked there a year and a half and never met all the monologue writers.
That's crazy. So how does The Simpsons come about?
Simpsons came about I'll give you the longer version. The Simpsons, it's Tracy Ullman show, right?
Right.
Critically regarded, darling show, the lowest rated show on television, number one.
What network was it on?
It was on Fox.
Oh, it was, yeah.
I believe, from the first night of the Fox network.
Sorry, offer some context on where Fox came, how it came about, and where it was in its history at the time.
Yeah, I forget what ancient history this is, and kids have no idea. For the entirety of TV history, there were 3 networks. That was it. You just took it for granted. There were these 3, like there's 3 branches of government. So it was this shocking idea. Well, there used to be. And suddenly, I guess it was, I forget who the guy was that founded it, but anyway, they said, we're going to do a fourth network. And it was shocking. I mean, it just showed you how kind of calcified and entrenched TV was. A fourth network, we can't imagine it. And they bought up a bunch of syndication stations.
UHF stations.
Yeah. And I think Metro Media stations, and made a fourth network. And they were only on like 3 nights a week. And they came on and did very cutting edge program, mostly racy, kind of dirty, but experimental too. But their first night on the air, they had Married with Children. They launched with a classic, and it was, it sort of said, here's what the network is going to be.
Which was a very bawdy situation comedy,
right?
A family, not unlike The Simpsons.
It's very much like the,
where as opposed to the idyllic Happy Days type families that have been on TV for so long.
Yes, the original title of Married with Children was not The Cosby Show.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
And especially in retrospect.
But at 10:30 on Sunday nights, they had the Tracy Ullman Show, sketch comedy show with this British entertainer. And it would be Tracy in 3 different sketches, and no one could tell where one sketch ended and the next began. And a lot of viewers thought, is this one long show? And they didn't understand it. So they said, we got to break up these sketches. And at first, they would show circus acts. It's a minute of a circus act in between the sketches. And then someone had the idea, let's put 1-minute cartoons in between these sketches. And Matt Groening at the time was a very popular underground cartoonist. And they call him in for a meeting, and I'm sure this has happened to you, where his agent said, they just want to meet you. It's just a get acquainted thing. And 5 minutes before the meeting, they lean out the door. They go, we want to hear about your new project. Well, and he had nothing. So in 5 minutes, he invented The Simpsons. He sketched out all the characters.
Incredible.
And he named them after his family. Homer, his parents are named Homer and Marge, and his sisters are named Lisa and Maggie. So that was the birth of it. And I know this story's going way too long.
No, it's fascinating.
But it was 3 1-minute cartoons. And then what they found out was a lot of kids were staying up late and sitting through 27 minutes of Tracy Ullman to catch 3 minutes of The Simpsons. So David Silverman, the chief animator, said, maybe we could do a half-hour show. Maybe they could have their own series. And that's where Sam Simon came in to teach Matt Groening how to do TV, how to do a TV show. And Al Jean and I were the first writer. Again, all the stories tie in. So Sam Simon's running the show. And he calls his friends Max Pross and Tom Gamble, said, do you want to work on our new show? And they said, no, but we recommend Al Jean and Mike Reiss. And I've made a beautiful career off these 2 guys' crumbs and leftovers.
But not a bad way to do it.
Yeah.
Might as well draft behind the best guys, right?
That's right.
So what struck me, in preparing for this interview was Simpsons has always been there, but you don't think about how big something is. It's kind of like SNL just had its 50th anniversary, right? It's always been there, and it's only in retrospect you go, well, it was always going to be, have this kind of duration. You go, well, not really, because Lorne left after year 4 or whatever, and almost got canceled 100 times. But The Simpsons, I think it was Nancy Cartwright. This is how long it's been on the air. She was pregnant in like the first or second season, and now she's a grandmother. So it's been a generation and a half of television.
I'm sure Harry Shearer doesn't love me saying this. Harry Shearer, who plays Mr. Burns, is now older than Mr. Burns.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. It's been around forever, and it's a little like the Tonight Show too, where they had a major shakeup at the show, and I left the show, and it's as great as it's ever been. And all these young new writers. There's a new showrunner, and it's just a shot in the arm for the show. I finally, for the first time in my life, can go home and just watch The Simpsons, and it's great. It's great and dense and surprising, and it's winning Emmys. And
so, what struck me was also that for a show to stay on that long, there has to be some cohesion and esprit de corps among an incredibly talented and very large group of producers and writers. And I mean, the alumni from this show is jaw dropping. Who's Conan O'Brien, obviously, and you've got the three horsemen that led the charge on it.
Yep.
But then you've also got Bob Odenkirk and Dana Gould and all kinds of massively talented writers. What was the vibe like that kept this thing moving forward in a kind of a copacetic way?
Well, it would change. In the early days of the show, we really had no idea what we were getting into. And it's very telling that the original writing staff of The Simpsons, except for Al Jean and I, who'd done a few sitcoms, none of those people, the other 6 writers, none of them had ever written a half-hour TV script before. I mean, this is who created The Simpsons. People, those are the first scripts they ever wrote. And
they were just the funniest people.
They were the funniest.
The smartest and funniest people.
Right. Half of them were Harvard Lampoon guys. A lot of them came out of a zine. George Meyer was one of the preeminent writers of the show. Did a little Xeroxed zine, if you remember what zines are. Just sort of a bad-looking 4-page newsletter of jokes. And pretty much Sam Simon just hired the staff of the zine. So that's where John Swartzwelder and John Vitti and Jeff Martin all came from. Jay Kogan and Wally Wolodarski, their first job was working with Sam on Tracy Ullman's show. So that was it. One guy was an advertising man. We had a sports writer there. They weren't real writers. So, again, they probably weren't locked into the normal rules of writing TV. And that's who invented the show. But it also shows he couldn't get real writers. No, I mean, he knew everybody. Nobody, I think, wanted to work on a cartoon. Nobody wanted to work with Sam Simon. And
because Sam had a reputation for
he
being
had a reputation.
difficult.
I mean, it sounds mean, but I mean, people warned me before he took the job. They said, you'll be working with. I mean, it was an outsized reputation because he was super great fun to be with. He just didn't suffer fools gladly. I love the guy.
So don't be a fool.
Yeah, don't be a fool. You didn't even want to pitch like a mediocre joke or he would just glare at you. I remember just some of the things, some of the shortcuts Al and I would take on a joke and he would glare and you would feel so bad. And so that was it. He got the best out of everybody. But Jay Kogan, one of our great writers on The Simpsons, his father was a great comedy writer. Arnie Kogan, he wrote for Mad Magazine, which really got us excited. But he wrote for, I think, Golden Girls and Empty Nest. And Arnie Kogan begged Jay not to take The Simpsons. Everybody thought it was career suicide, writing for a cartoon on the Fox network. And the last thing I'll say is, when we were putting the show together, there hadn't been animation in prime time since the Flintstones. So we go, we don't know how to do this. Let's call the Flintstones people. And they were all dead.
Oh my God.
We had nothing to go by.
That's crazy. You made a point. So I interviewed Elizabeth Hanks, E.A. Hanks, Tom Hanks' daughter, last week.
Okay.
In this room. And she made the observation that her father's career the beginning of it coincided with a technological innovation called the VCR.
Ah, sure.
And you made the same point about The Simpsons, is that technology helped people watch, rewatch, and share a show that was not, the value of which was not obvious to the networks right off. How do you think that contributed to the show's success? Yeah,
I think it got people excited. I mean, it not only got people excited, hey, watch it again. You'll see things in the background that you didn't catch the first time. But it was also an opportunity for us to say, hey, let's joke it up. There would have been no point to be doing VCR jokes or doing, Easter eggs before there was videotape, because why do them? No one will ever see them. But it was a burden on us. It made life very hard. One of the first scripts we wrote, it's Bart is in a video arcade. No, Homer's in the video arcade. And we realized, we've got to think of funny names for every video game behind him. And we did it. We did that work. because we had to. And then, you know, the fans liked it and became an aspect of the show. And then the show went into high def a few years ago, or probably 20 years ago. And suddenly that meant, oh, we've got to fill in everything in the background. Like we had a scene with Lisa in the library, and we said, oh, well, now we had to write funny names for every book in the library. And so now Lisa doesn't go to the library anymore.
Because it's too much work.
Too much work.
But that's one of the things that like people bought into. And speaking of that, you didn't have the internet as a crutch to go and look up all this kind of stuff.
No.
You know, certainly no Chat GPT. What would the funny name of a book be?
Yeah. So, yes, we had a 1-volume encyclopedia, like a 2,000-page cinder block of an encyclopedia on the table that we referred to. We used it all the time. But what we had was 6 or 7 really smart guys, and everybody was smart about different things. So one guy knew a lot of history. One guy knew a lot of sports. I knew a lot of movie trivia. Another guy knew musical theater. Al Jean, brilliant in math. And so if a question came up, someone in that room could answer it.
Yeah. You said the writer's room was like a kibbutz, but more Jewish.
It was. I say that, and it's really not true. When I got into TV in '82, everybody was Jewish, 100%. And Al Jean, it was an Irish Catholic guy. He was the token Gentile on the first few staffs we'd work on, and people would ask him, "All right, we're doing something about Easter. What is that? And do you drink wine at breakfast? What do you do?" And it's gotten more and more Gentile as time went on. So I think the Simpsons staff was maybe a quarter Jewish. Now I don't know, maybe 10% Jewish. It's still far beyond the national average, but TV is not as Jewish as it was 40 years ago.
How did you manage your success as it came to you? Did the money change your outlook on work? Did it change the relationships you had in the writer's room? Were there challenges in adjusting to a life where everybody thinks you're the greatest now that you're associated with something this big?
That's the only real comfort. Otherwise, nothing's changed. Part of what works at The Simpsons is everyone feels that pressure to be good all the time, you know? And I'll remember days, there was once someone named a character Paul Mitchell. It was just some background character. He named him Paul Mitchell. And everyone goes, why did he do that? That's a shampoo. What is it? It's not a joke. What was he thinking? We got so mad at this guy who's dead now for doing this name for a background character that we spent 2 hours just analyzing and rebuking him for doing that. So you couldn't phone it in. You couldn't slide by. It's just hard work. And at first it was just, it helped that in the early days we were all friends, and you felt the pressure of you don't want to let down your friends, and you didn't want Sam Simon glaring at you. But now it became the pressure of everybody loves this show. Don't wreck it. And, you know, we read what the fans say on the internet, and they're brutal, and we listen to them. You know, it's too much for most of us to take. But Al Jean, who's run the show single-handedly for 25 years, he would go on the message boards every week, and he would say, gee, they hate Homer's too stupid. Homer's too mean. We got to fix that. And, you know, we're very responsive to the fans.
Yeah. You said showrunner is basically, you said, a sexy title, but a crummy job.
It was the worst job I ever had.
You gained 70 pounds.
I did gain 70 pounds. It nearly killed me. And it's a job so hard, I was going, oh, I hope I get a heart attack. I literally did. Where I go, that'll
so you get a couple of days off?
Exactly. That's how sick it was. Running The Simpsons was maybe, 100 hours a week.
Wow.
52 weeks a year. We had no break. And so I only did it for 2 years. And in fact, in the early history of the show, people only ran the show for 2 years and turned it over to someone else. And then in year 8 or year 9, a guy named Mike Scully took over the show and turned it into a factory. He just delegated responsibility and made sure everyone was trained in every aspect of the show. And he turned it into a viable enterprise that could run forever, as it has, which I'm sure Lorne Michaels has done that too. It's just so locked in how they run the show that it runs beautifully. So, there is no end in sight for The Simpsons. It just got picked up for 4 more years.
Wow.
It's going to be 40, and no reason to end it.
How does it feel after all the critical success that you had on The Simpsons when Roger Ebert says there is nothing he likes about your movie?
Oh, my movie, yes, I wrote a movie called My Life in Ruins, and I don't know. I wrote the movie script, I sold the script, and it was going to be fun. Hey, I was going to go off in the summer. It was a movie about a tour group in Greece. And I was going to go off with the star. We're going to shoot this movie in Greece and have a great summer. And then one day I pick up Variety. They say, My Life in Ruins, wrap shooting in Greece. I go, nobody told me.
Oh.
So they made the movie without me. And I don't know. There was a lot of rewriting on the set, a lot of rewriting. There was a lot of ad-libbing. It's filled with Canadian improv actors. And what can I say? I'm not happy with the script that's on screen. I'm not happy with the direction or the cast. But maybe my script sucked too.
Yeah.
It bugs me if it was my script. If I'd been in control of it the way I got to control The Simpsons or something, and it sucked, I would have gone, I suck. All right, I'll take all the blame, but I'll just never know. It's not.
If you could have made it into a better film than what was
I don't know
produced.
if there was a better well, no, I can't tell.
Can you detach? I guess my point
I'll
is.
say this. At the premiere party, someone very close to the production said to me, your first draft was wonderful. Your first draft. And that was her way of saying they messed it up.
They screwed up your movie. Yeah. Well, it's about travel. The movie's about travel, and now travel is a very important part of your life. What makes a great trip?
What makes a great? I think the surprise of it. I don't want to go.
146 countries.
I've been to 147 countries now. I've been to.
What was the last one?
It's probably like Mauritius or La Reunion. Places I'd never heard of. I'm going to now, and we were in Senegal and. Places people
You've
don't
done the
usually
Viking River cruise. You don't need to go back on the.
I haven't done. This is what's funny is, my wife loves to travel. That's the only reason I travel.
His beautiful wife is sitting right here on the couch.
My beautiful wife is here, and when she was a kid, she went around the world twice. Back when travel was super cheap, and she went to places you can't go now, like Afghanistan. So when we were getting married, we were trying to figure out where to go on a honeymoon, and we each got to make 2 suggestions, and I said Disneyland and Disney World. And I did. I mean, that's my idea of a great time. And she said, I'm looking at Yemen and Siberia. And I said, those are places people want to get out of. And so we went to the normal places and we took a lot of bus tours all over Europe just to catch me up. And that's where My Life in Ruins came from. It was really observations of what tour groups are like and bus tours are like. But once we got through those, she brought me to places like Iran and Libya and then the North Pole. And what I found was I don't want to go to these places, but they're really nice when you get there.
North Korea was nice.
I enjoyed. You certainly can have a nice time in North Korea. I think a better time as a visitor than as a resident. But if you go to North Korea or Elon Musk goes or any Joe Biden goes, everyone gets the same 3-day tour, and it's really slick, and you'll have a great time. You'll have good meals and river cruises, and you go to the DMZ, and It's a beautiful country, and the people seem very nice, but you wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah. You write recently in your Substack about getting haircuts in Sudan.
I got a haircut.
I got a Sudan in Cambodia, and I thought that was a really cool thing to do because you can go do like a quotidian thing in a very different environment. And they can't screw up this hair, so there's no special instructions that a language barrier is going to mess up.
Yes, we have pretty much the same haircut, and it's just a buzz cut. And you go most places in Africa. If you take a trip more than 3 weeks, you're going to need a haircut. And if you're traveling somewhere hot, it's an emergency. And you go, there's no tourist barbershops. You go where the people go. And, a haircut that'll cost you $50 in New York will cost you 38 cents in Ethiopia. And it's the same haircut, but you don't know what you're going to get, whether it's going to be a buzz cut or whether it's going to be an hour and a half ritual and they slap cologne on you and give you a back rub. I love it. It's one of my favorite things in travel. And like you said, the quotidian things, when you run out of toothpaste and you got to find toothpaste in Iran or something like that. In Libya, I bought Crust toothpaste.
Crust.
It looked like Crest, but if you didn't read carefully, you're reading, CR looks like Crest to me.
Right. So they're ripping Procter & Gamble off.
Yeah. Let me plug my Substack.
Yes.
Before we go any further. So I've been to all these countries. I got a lot of funny stories and crazy photos from everywhere we've gone. And
I saw a crucifixion replication in Philippines.
Yes, we went to the Philippines for Easter for a crucifixion where they crucify a guy. It's been the same guy for 34 years.
That's his gig, man.
He's been Jesus longer than Jesus was Jesus. And they nail him to a cross, and they put him up and hang him on the cross. And he goes, it's a living. But they do.
Hilarious.
They penetrate. They go through his hands, but not so much that, he can't do it again next year. And so we went to see that, and it was very moving. It was actually, we went to gawk, and then you go, oh, this is what it must have really been like.
The guy's hanging on the cross for 3 hours.
The guy hanging, but also just the whole town, small town, comes out, and there's vendors selling food, and let's watch the thieves get crucified. What really got to me was, it looked like a Bible movie, but then they had to bring the guy down and bring the cross down, and that's a lot harder than putting it up. And it was very elaborate and clumsy. They didn't quite have the act down of that. And I go, again, this is probably what happened. This is what it was like. It was.
So who'd they have doing the crucifying, I guess? Was it Romans or Jews?
They had Romans. I was representing the Jews. And again, if it's a hammer and nails involved, you don't bring in a Jew. There's funny. One Jewish carpenter, and they were killing him. And it didn't even stick. And so, but yeah, they do in Tagalog, in Philippine language, they do sort of a whole passion play. And you see there's guys dressed as Romans, but they're on cell phones, and Jesus is carrying the cross, but he's also drinking Evian. And they go through all the motions, then the Romans are going to nail the guy to a cross, but first they put Purell on his hand.
That's funny.
So they,
it's a kinder, gentler crucifixion. Yes. That's good.
And so that was it. And we watched the crucifixion. So that's the kind of thing we see in the world. And again, you kind of go and you go, oh, this will be a Facebook moment, and then you're sort of moved. It's sort of spiritual and sort of like watching history. I've had very, very few bad trips, but those are the ones that wind up in the Substack.
Yeah, next, you need to go to a Civil War reenactment and see how that goes.
I would go to that.
We're going to wrap up in 2 seconds. I want to ask your thoughts. The world is very different today, technologically and from a media perspective. Obviously, you can create on your cell phone in 30 seconds or 30 hours, depending on how much time you take to produce it. But what advice would you give to young creatives in comics that could help them keep going through the challenges of their creative journeys?
I would say just keep doing it, keep making stuff. The best thing to do, I would say, is master the rudiments. Pick up these tools. If you try and make a cartoon and put it on YouTube, and if you can't figure out a way to animate it, find someone else online who will animate it for you. But keep putting product out there. There was a thing a few years ago called the Harlem Shuffle. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just somebody put a video on where it was just, I think it's really boring for 45 seconds and then gets super weird. You remember this? And everybody was making their version of it, and they did.
Was that called the Harlem Shuffle?
Wasn't it?
What was it called? Mike, what was that called? The Harlem Shake.
The Harlem Shake, exactly. Yeah, I'm showing my age. But
no, Harlem Shuffle was a Rolling Stones song.
Right. Okay, so it's the Harlem Shake. But everybody was doing it. They did it on The Office. The Simpsons did it. And I go, wow, those guys really got lucky who made this video. And then you go on YouTube, you see, they had made 60 different videos before that. They just kept taking their shot. There's guys from Australia. And suddenly something hit. So make something, keep putting it out there. It's always good practice. Here's the other tip I'll give for comedy writers. This is, which is go on Twitter every day and try and write a great joke. And try and write a joke. Set a number for yourself. You want 25 likes or 50 likes. Put your joke up there. If you don't get that, take it down, put up another one. And you only have to have one great joke a day, but it's great discipline. It's great exercise. At the end of a month, you've got 30 great jokes. And also, the late night shows read this stuff. They find writers from people writing great jokes on Twitter or probably other social media. But that's my suggestion. I do it too. I try to do it.
It's probably a lot more fun than writing 60 okay jokes for Johnny Carson.
And I learn it too, which is every once in a while I'll say, this isn't great, but I think people like it. And they don't like it. They only like a great joke. It's nothing easier to do than fool yourself into writing bad comedy. So it's my one line comedy writing classes. Before you write it down, go, would I laugh at this? Would I genuinely find this funny?
That's good enough for me. I like it. Mike Reiss, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Substack, Now I've Seen Everything, or just look for Mike Reiss, R-E-I-S-S.
We're going to have a link in the show notes. We can do that. They can click.
Better.
There we go. Thanks for your time.
So much fun. Thank you.